Hello everybody, thanks for coming today. I'm Hannah, the creator over at Bookshelvish, and welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna do kind of an updated introduction video because the last one that I did, I was a baby. It was the first video I ever put together and I look back and I cringe. So a couple of weeks ago, I asked my followers on Instagram to submit questions for a Q&A. So we're just gonna pop right into those and get to know each other a little bit. Prepared for this at all other than assembling the questions. So a lot of these will be just on the fly. I have all of the questions in a list on my iPad right here. So hopefully this will be interesting to watch and it's just gonna be knee-jerk answers. So enjoy. All right, first question. What is a super popular book you think is overhyped? I have a couple that come to mind. One is more of a series, which is Fourth Wing. I do really like the first book and I've only read through Iron Flame. But generally speaking, I think the reason that this is so popular is that it's a lot of people's gateway into reading and reading in the fantasy genre specifically. And I don't feel like it's the best. It doesn't have, in my opinion, the best romance. I feel like a lot of different aspects of it that are arguably the best aspects of the book are pulled pretty deliberately from other fantasy series that do them first and better. So yeah, I don't have a lot of love for Fourth Wing. Another one is The Midnight Library. I was not a big fan of The Midnight Library. It felt like knockoff Christmas Carol featuring depression, which was not really my favorite genre. If you see me looking over here, I'm looking at my red shelves, which is kind of hard because I don't usually keep books that I don't like. I didn't like the last two books of the Never After series, Crossed and Hexed. I thought they just gave me the ick. What's another one? Metal Slinger. Oh my goodness, Metal Slinger is so popular, and I will admit I liked the book a lot up until the last chapter, and I can't really tell you why without spoilers, but I thought it was completely out of nowhere. I thought it ruined the whole romance. Yeah, I don't really keep a lot of books that I don't like, but there's a few. Most overrated and underrated Halloween candies. I am a huge lover of any kind of Reese's, particularly holiday Reese's. I feel like they always taste the best. So Reese's Pumpkins would be my favorite Halloween candy. Most overrated. A lot of people I feel like Almond Joy. I really enjoy the flavor and the smell of coconut, but the actual texture of physical coconut makes me ill. So never been an Almond Joy girly. Would you rather be able to read twice as fast or listen twice as fast? I think read twice as fast. I feel like I'm already a pretty quick listener. Like I usually listen to audiobooks between 2.5 and 3. And I feel like if I listened any faster than that, most of the audiobook apps I used wouldn't even speed up anymore. So listening, I guess, might be nice because I could consume more content like podcasts and YouTube videos and things, but I think reading overall is what I would prefer to do faster. And I don't feel like I'm a slow reader. Could always speed it up. What's something that always makes you laugh? Not a something, but a someone. I feel like my husband and I always goof off a lot together, and that's really fun. As far as like humor in shows, I think probably the easiest comedy that can usually get me to laugh in some form or another is New Girl. And there's definitely some like meme formats and things where if they pop up, I'm like already on the floor. My husband quotes this one. I don't know if it's Family Guy or South Park. I get those mixed up, which I shouldn't. I haven't seen either of them, but he'll quote it and it'll make me laugh even though I have no context for it. If anyone has seen the show Succession, we quote that all the time around here and it's always very hilarious. Favorite book of all time? Oh, I knew I would get hit with this one. Normally when people ask this, I say The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I haven't read it for many years, so I don't know if that's still the case. Some favorite books, like overall, that I've had over the last couple of years would be Divine Rivals, Outlander, Letters to the Lost, The Simple Wild, A Forbidden Alchemy, When the Moon Hatched, You with a View, Just for the Summer, The Dagger and the Flame. We'll just leave that there. I think that's a good kind of smorgasbord. Oh, The Dead Romantics, Beach Read. Ugh, I can't believe I left those off. I like a lot of books. What do you do for a living? Oh, that's a good getting to know you question. I am an estate planning attorney, which basically means I draft people's wills, trusts, advance healthcare directives, powers of attorney, all that. That's all I do all day long. And I do some trust administration and probate work, meaning when someone's passed away, I help administer their estates. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm like crazy passionate about my job because I think about this a lot. I can picture myself doing like pretty much any job ever and feeling like I would have a really good time doing it. But I do enjoy my job a lot. I work with a lot of people and a lot of different kinds of people, and I feel like I get to come alongside families making really tough decisions or being in a really difficult time in their lives, and I enjoy being able to help with that. Before I was an estate planning attorney, I was a family law attorney, meaning I dealt with a lot of custody, divorce, domestic violence, adoption, guardianship cases, and I loved doing that for the emotional reward, but it was so draining, and I felt like I would be a husk of a human if I did that for my whole life. So I kind of pivoted, just to give you a little career background. But yes, I am an estate planning attorney currently. Someone said ASL. ASL, I'm 28 years old. I am a female, and I am located in Northern California, specifically Sacramento area. What do you do for fun besides reading? This is a good one. I feel like I'm kind of a hobby hopper in that I like to do lots of different things. I love like yarn crafts, so knitting, crocheting, that kind of thing. I enjoy journaling. I enjoy Notion, which sounds so lame, but I really like to organize to the point where I would consider it a hobby, honestly. I like adventuring. I love to travel. I love hanging out with my dog and my husband. My husband and I are members of a few different wineries around here, so we love to go wine tasting. I like being outside. I love road trips. I enjoy eating bagels on Sunday mornings. These are all good hobbies. What's your favorite place you've ever been? That's a good question. So I think it's a tie. I'll give you like top 3. I think my all-time, this is so hard. I'll give you my four favorite cities. First one that comes to mind, which is one of my favorite places I've ever traveled to, is Copenhagen in Denmark. I absolutely loved it. I'll give you top 5 favorite cities in no particular order. So Copenhagen, Edinburgh, and Scotland. I love Scotland with my whole being. Truly just the best. I really love Prague. And that one's kind of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people, but I think it's a pretty small town, so you feel like you get to know it pretty well, even if you're not there for very long. But it feels so old world fairy tale. Genuinely, I've never been in a city that feels like such a fairy tale as Prague does. I would also say Galway. I love Galway so much. I want to go back to Ireland. I haven't been there since 2018, which feels entirely too long ago, and I've never been with my husband, so I really would love to go back with him. And then 5th, I think, would be Lucerne in Switzerland. We visited Lucerne on our honeymoon last year, and we both fell in love with it. The whole city is just gorgeous. I love it. It's on a river. We did what turned into like a 4-hour walking tour of the whole place. I really loved it. And I loved being in like the lake region of Switzerland generally. But then aside from all of those, I would also say one of my favorite places is Folsom, California, which is where I live. And I often think about whether I would want to move somewhere else or be happy somewhere else. And I'm sure that I would be, but I really do enjoy where I live. I feel like it's close to everything. I can get to the beach, ocean, can get to Lake Tahoe, wine country, San Francisco, like everything's within pretty much a 2-hour drive from here, which I love so much. So a couple of my favorite places. What would you do with $1 million? I feel like this is such like a classic getting to know you question. Real practical answer. I don't think $1 million is as much as it used to be. So my first step would be paying off on my debt. Second would be putting a down payment down on a house, possibly paying the house off. And then I would want to go take a fun trip somewhere, probably either to see the Northern Lights or to go live and road trip around Ireland for like a month. I would love to do that. Yeah, I think I would probably run through $1 million at that point because houses here are freaking expensive. How did you get into reading and when did you start your book stuff? So this is an Instagram question, but I'll talk about both. So I've always been a big reader from the time I was little. One of my first memories is teaching myself to read with the Frog and Toad books. That's a deep cut if anyone knows what those are. I kind of took a break, I would say, from reading during my college and law school years, just because I was so overwhelmed with academic reading that there wasn't a lot of time for fun reading. And I was just burnt out by the end of the day to the point where picking up another book for fun did not sound fun at all. And then reading as an adult, I was kind of starting to trickle back into it after passing the bar. But I would say with like full force, I got back into reading probably in like very early 2022. And I made my first book account, which was on Instagram, in May of 2022, and have just kind of slowly added on other sites since then. So I now have a Substack with a newsletter that goes out that's all bookish. I have a TikTok. I have obviously a booktube. I'm trying to think of others, but those are the main ones. So that's kind of my journey here. Are you a morning person or night owl? Morning person for sure. Although my husband is much more of a morning person in the sense that he gets up at like 4 or 5 every morning, and I would comfortably get up at like 6 on my own every day. That's really the most I can sleep in. But because I'm always the last one up in our house, it makes me feel like I'm not a morning person, but I am. What genres do you gravitate toward most? This one's pretty easy. Romance and fantasy. There's really not a lot of other genres I read. I'm trying to branch out a little bit. I think I do get into contemporary fiction somewhat, historical fiction sometimes, but it's chiefly romance and fantasy. What's your go-to comfort food? Ooh, that's a good question. I love mashed potatoes. Like if you put mashed potatoes, usually with like salmon or tri-tip, I love that so much. If it's just like I need to eat and I'm cooking something and it needs to be like easy and I'll love it, there's this very specific brand of chicken nuggets from, Costco is where I originally found them, but they're in a couple of grocery stores. I think it's Just Bear is what the brand is. And I discovered these because one of my best friends, Maddie, and her husband made them for me when I was visiting her out in Michigan, and they're all I eat now. You can air fry them. They're delicious. So that's a comfort food, and it's easy to make. And I'm also a big believer in Kraft mac and cheese. Not like fancy mac and cheese. Blue Box Kraft mac and cheese with some butter, some milk. It's so good. Physical books, ebooks, or audiobooks, what's your preference? I'm good. Physical books are my preference. I also do read a lot on my Kindle. I used to be more of an audiobook girl than I really have been in the past couple of months. I don't really know what happened, but I think I'm just really not an auditory learner, and I've had several therapists now kind of postulate that I'm probably high-functioning anxiety, high-functioning ADHD, and I think I just get distracted when I have an audiobook in sometimes and I can't focus on it, and so I end up not enjoying audiobooks as much as physical and digital books. What shows are you currently watching? Well, my husband and I are watching through The Witcher right now. He's doing a rewatch before the next season comes out at the end of October, and I'm seeing it for the first time. I have not read the books. I don't really plan on reading the books, but maybe that'll change after I watch. But we're about to start season 2 of that. We just binged season 2 of Nobody Wants This, which is one of my favorite shows. We finished watching Gilmore Girls a couple of weeks ago. We're in the middle of the current season of Below Deck Mediterranean and Real Housewives of Orange County right now. Do you have any reading quirks or habits? Quirks or habits? I feel like those are 2 different things. Quirks? I don't know. I dog ear my pages. I don't really use bookmarks, which I know pisses some people off. Habits? I don't know what my habits are. I love taking pictures of the dedications of my books. I think dedications are a really special part of the book, and I always make time to read them. I really meticulously track my reading, which I know some people think is weird, but I just think it's fun. Again, I think organization is kind of a hobby. Favorite season and why? Definitely fall. I like new beginnings, and I like the weather, and I like the anticipation of knowing the holidays are coming up, but not quite being there yet, and all of that is fall to me. What's a book that genuinely changed your perspective? A book that I read at the recommendation of a very wise person is a nonfiction book called The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And there are so many things in there that I apply to my life on a daily basis. I think that's a really good book, either if you're in therapy or if you're considering therapy or you have a tough relationship with any members of your extended family that you might feel like could qualify as emotionally immature adults. You should read it. Do you have any pets? If not, would you want one? I do have a pet. My pet is Captain. He's my rescue dog. He's about 7 years old, we think, and he's a mutt. I will put a picture of him right here for your viewing pleasure. He does interrupt my videos sometimes, so you will be able to see glimpses of him around the channel if you look. Favorite reading spot. So I do have, right now we're sitting in what we call my book nook. It's basically just the loft upstairs, and one wall has floor to ceiling, basically bookcases. And in the corner of that, I have a nice gray Chase lounge chair that I read in a lot. Recently, I've been reading in bed using a projector on the wall to project like ambiance videos, and that has been really fun recently. So it's a toss up between those two. I also love to read in a hammock, like in the woods. Coffee or tea? Tea. 100%. How do you choose what to read next? I usually come up with like a monthly TBR and pick off that, or another really common way is that I'm buddy reading with somebody. Sometimes I'll just see a book and feel compelled to start it. Library holds dictate a lot too. What's a weird talent or skill you have? I don't know that weird is the best description of this, but I used to do competitive Irish dancing and I definitely would not be as good now if I just like tried to do it, but I think that's really interesting. I'm very good at figuring out how to do things in spreadsheets. I'm not like a spreadsheet champion necessarily, but I can pretty much figure it out. Do you track your reading, Goodreads, journals, etc.? Yes, so every time I finish a book, I'm tracking it in Goodreads, Storygraph, and my own Notion Notion system, I guess, not folder. I did kind of try to start using Fable. I don't find it as like easy to use as some of the others, so that bothers me. And in 2026, I'll be starting to use a physical book journal, which I've been in process of setting up for a couple of weeks now, and I'm really excited about that too. What's your comfort movie or show that you rewatch? New Girl is one of them. Vampire Diaries, Grey's Anatomy, Gilmore Girls. Did I say Gilmore Girls already? I might have. I love Greek. I feel like that's one that not a lot of people have seen. I love Greek so much. And The Bold Type. I love The Bold Type. Probably my favorite like girly girl movies and shows are The Bold Type and Greek. What's a book you wish you could read again for the first time? All of them. I know everyone says this, but definitely A Court of Mist and Fury. I feel like the visceral reaction to figuring all of that out for the first time, you're just so swept up in it. And I loved that experience. Do you cook or bake? Any signature dishes? I would like to be a better cook than I currently am. Honestly, my husband cooks more in our house than I do. I do like to bake. I make really good pumpkin oatmeal cookies, which is really specific, but they're so good. This is literally not baking, but I make these like no bake chocolate oat cookies, and those are super good too. So I think that's like the closest I would get to like a signature. Oh, and I make really good cinnamon rolls. Any unpopular reading opinions? Oh, so many. One that I can think of sharing off the top of my head, and I see a lot of people go against it, is that if you really are advocating for everyone should read whatever they want and everyone should be able to read any book they want, I think that goes against what a lot of people do when they try to cancel authors that write books that they don't like. I think more people should make liberal use of the block button, and just because you don't particularly find value in a book or don't think that you would like it doesn't mean that other people should be barred from reading it or that the author should be driven off the course of their career and no longer allowed to write. I think there are plenty of objectively bad books out there, but it shouldn't be. My opinion of that doesn't necessarily mean that should be the case. Other unpopular opinions. I think if people are reading more than 30 books a month, they probably are skimming a good portion of those. Not that it really matters, because what someone else reads doesn't really dictate what I read. Me saying, oh, well, you didn't really read 30 books a month doesn't, like, that's fine. So what if they didn't, if they want to believe they read 30 books, that's fine. They can. But I do get annoyed when people act as if like they're better readers than another person just because that person read like 5 books a month instead of 42, because who is out here reading 42 books a month? What does your typical day look like? Okay, so I work 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Monday, Wednesdays, I go into the office. Tuesday, Thursdays, I stay home. Friday is normally my like cleaning, errands, hanging out with friends day. My husband still works on Friday, so it's normally a little bit quieter and I can kind of do my own thing. And then Saturdays, I volunteer at the library for 2 to 3 hours every single Saturday morning. It's Sunday. Sometimes we go to church. Then, weekends are weekends. So sometimes we'll hang out with friends. Sometimes we'll go places. Sometimes it'll be productive days at home. Sometimes it will be not so productive days at home. It really just depends. I work about 30 minutes away from the house. My workday starts at 9, so usually if I'm going to work on like a Monday or Wednesday, I leave the house around like 8:15. I used to not start work at 9. I started work at 7, and that was a little rougher. So I'm enjoying kind of this new job, having slower mornings and feeling like I have more time to be a person. Favorite bookish memory? I don't know that I have one particular favorite bookish memory off the top of my head, but what comes to mind is staying up almost all night after a signing event that I went to with a few of my best friends, and we stayed up all night reading the book that had been released at that party. We had gotten them all signed by the author, and then we just stayed up and read it straight through, and it was so much fun. I had such a good time. And the book was Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. Do you play any instruments or have any musical talents? Not I was weirdly pretty good at playing the recorder when I was little, and I took piano lessons until I was like 10, but they didn't really stick. If anything, I was more of a dancer. So a lot of my like musical talent comes more from being able to stay on beat. What's your TBR situation like right now? Terrible. I have over 700 books on my physical TBR. All of the ones behind me that you can see are books I have not read yet. And I'm constantly on a mission to lower my TBR. And I think next year I'm really gonna focus on trying not to go out and buy a lot of new books. How do you unwind after a stressful day? Usually reading, hanging out with my husband, hanging out with my dog, going for walks. I feel like all the usual stuff. I drink a lot of tea. Do you reread books? Yes, I will. One of the criteria I look for if I'm deciding whether to keep a book or not after I've read it is whether I think I'm likely to reread it. My most common rereads are comfort rereads, so like ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, other series I've really loved, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, things like that, like comfort rereads I reread often, or a lot of times I'll reread before the next installment in a series comes out because I read so much that I often don't retain details for things like multiple years after I read them. So rereads become necessary. Are you into any sports, watching or playing? No. I'm not a big sports person. Michael, my husband, is not a big sports person, so there's not a lot of like sports we care about. I grew up with my dad being really passionate about very niche sports. So like he was a water polo coach and player for a long time, so like I know a lot about water polo. Weirdly, or maybe not weirdly, I don't know, I am one of the most passionate people that I know about the Olympics. I love the Olympics, Southern Olympics, summer and winter Olympics. I'm obsessed with them. It's like the only time I care about organized sports. And I have never played any sports. I was always dancing from the time I was 3 all the way through when I was 17. Dance. What book made you cry the most? Probably The Book Thief. I cried during a lot of books, honestly, so that's kind of not a good measure for me as to whether the book is good or not. I cried a lot during The Simple Wild, and most recently I cried reading Unlock Your Storybook Heart, which is a poetry collection by Amanda Lovelace, and I feel like I just felt very seen reading it. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be? Oh, I don't know. I feel like, oh, there's Captain. There's Captain, come here. You guys probably can't even see him. He is a ham behind the camera when I'm filming, but doesn't like to come in front of it. I think he knows. What was I talking about? Oh, who could I have dinner with? I would probably pick like a fictional character. Like I would love to have dinner with like Feyre or Aelin or Lysandra. I'm obsessed with Lysandra. This is gonna sound bad, but a lot of my relatives who have already passed away, I was not particularly close with. All of the relatives that I am very close with are not dead yet. So honestly, if I could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, it would be Michael, my husband. I love having dinner with him. What other creative hobbies do you have? We kind of talked about that already. Favorite movie or movie genre? I don't watch a lot of movies. I watch more shows than movies. And I feel like my favorite movies usually have some kind of like fantasy element to them. Like I love How to Train Your Dragon. I love romance. So I like thinking off the top of my head, like fun rom-coms. I love Letters to Juliet, Mamma Mia. I love The Titanic. I love The Prestige. All those are favorites off the top of my head. Do you collect anything besides books? That's a good question. I have like kind of an odds and ends box for like sentimental things that I've collected over the years. They're not any one thing. It's more just things that have, can see his tail going by. I just collect things that I think have significance to me. Another thing I've started doing this year is junk journaling. So I'm hoping more of those odds and ends end up in the junk journal as opposed to just floating around in the nether. I do collect my old plane tickets though. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? I feel like I can't like whip out advice always. Every time I'm complaining about things to my grandma, I feel like she is really good at helping me see things in perspective. And she used to always tell me that like she loves all of her children very much, my mom included, but that it's everyone's first time on earth. And so having grace with others is really important, and that having really high expectations, whether that's of your parents, your other relatives, your friends, whoever, they're not always going to meet them. And usually when people don't meet your expectations, the problem was your expectation. So, and that's my paraphrased version of it. She's very German and would have said that with a beautiful accent and much more aggression. But I think she's a good person to make sure that I have my head on my shoulders. What's your living situation like? Apartment, house, roommates, etc. Okay, so I live with my husband. We live in a house. We're renting it. This house is 2 stories. It's 4 bedrooms. We live in the master bedroom, obviously. And we have a guest room slash my office for the days I work from home. He has an office downstairs, and then we do have an empty room right now that we're kind of using as like a storage room, but will eventually be a nursery for a baby. Do you have any irrational fears? I don't think a fear necessarily, but I really don't like small things. People always laugh about this. I think it is born from being forced to participate in ladybug releases when I was younger, and I really hated the feeling of them crawling all over me. So now anything small, it gives me the heebie-jeebies more than it's like a phobia. So I don't like little bugs. I don't like really little stickers, stamps. It's why my ears aren't pierced, because I don't like how small earrings are. Yeah, when little kids would have like those little like Polly Pockets or like the really little rubber erasers, like I can't do it. What's on your bucket list? What's not on my bucket list? So much. Top of my bucket list right now is probably seeing the Northern Lights, going to New Zealand at some point, and I would really love to go on a safari. What's a hill you'll die on? See, I should have like maybe looked at this list in advance, because off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of a lot of things that I feel like that strongly about. I'll go with an easy one. I think pineapple does belong on pizza. And in an airplane, I always get the window seat. All right. So that is all the questions that were submitted. Thank you so much, guys, for sending those in. So again, I'm Hannah. Welcome to my channel. If you guys sat through all of that, bless you. I know it was one of my longer ones and didn't have very much to do about books. So thanks for letting me be chatty. And I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you come back and check out another video. Hope you have a great day.